Hey, shalom, brothers. Once again, this is Elder Taza Dakbar back with another video. The last video I did was about beware of the Ebola vaccines, and the reason why I was saying that is because of the correlation between there's three major companies out there that are making a virus, a vaccine that's complemented with the rabies virus, and now you have this is actually an old article from 2012, and it says the U.S. Congress introduces bill ordering FEMA to conduct mass fatality planning. So now let's go down here. Natural news. While millions of Americans were busy watching the elephant puppet battle, the ass puppet at the latest political circus, the United States Congress quietly introduced a new piece of legislation ordering the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to begin preparing for mass casualties throughout the country. House Resolution 6566, also known as the Mass Fatality Planning and Religious Considerations Act, would amend the Homeland Security Act of 2002. Let's read on down. To mandate that FEMA immediately begin conducting mass fatality planning in preparation for a major event or series of events that may kill off untold numbers of people. Now, this is just at the same time this article came out, October 19th, 2002. Now, in September of 2002, which is about a month before this report came out about FEMA's, about this thing here, about a month before that, you had an article that came out in September from Defense News: military government to train using zombie crisis scenario. Right? It says San Diego, forget the H1N1 pandemic. Could a future crisis arise from an outbreak of viruses that destroy brain cells and render people violently catatonic like zombies? Is the question. The far-fetched scenario of a government grappling a zombie-like threat. Think movies like Night of the Living Dead, or more comically Zombieland, has captured the attention and imagination of Brad Barker, president of the security firm Halo Corp. Next month, which, remember, this article goes back to September of 2012, so this is talking about October of 2012. His outfit will incorporate no kidding zombies in a disaster crisis scenario at the company's annual counterterrorism summit in San Diego, a 5-day event providing hands-on training, realistic demonstrations, lectures, and classes geared to more than 1,000 military personnel, law enforcement officials, medical experts, and state and federal government workers. Halo will take over the 44-acre Paradise Point resort in the city's popular Mission Bay and create a series of terrorist scenarios with immersive Hollywood sets, including a Middle Eastern village and a pirate's haven. Retired Air Force General Michael Hayden, a former CIA and NSA director, and Mexico Interior Security Alejandro Piore, if I'm pronouncing it right, Romero, will speak during the summit, which runs October 30th to November 2nd of 2012. It says Barker calls the scenario zombie apocalypse. The phrase took off last year after the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention unveiled a campaign aimed at underscoring the importance of being prepared for major emergencies, natural disasters, and pandemics in the CDC's Preparedness 101 program. Fictional zombies are used to drive home the message that Americans must be ready for any emergency, even the kind that hypothetically could stem from a brain-eating virus pandemic. Zombies also star in a 40-page comic book the CDC published, a tongue-in-cheek take on the serious scenario of the mutated virus that quickly spreads as the government dispatches its military to maintain order while infectious disease specialists secure a vaccine. And this is something that is sponsored by the government, the federal government, the FEMA, the CDC. Basically, they're running zombie drills in different parts of the United States at different points in times. So at the wake of this House Resolution 6566, and as a matter of fact, let me go back here. Let me go to congress.gov to show you that this is no bullshit. Down here, HR 6566, 112th Congress, 2011-2012. Mass, it says shown here, introduced in House at September 28, 2012. Mass Fatality Planning and Religious Considerations Act amends the Homeland Security Act of 2002 to require the administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is FEMA, to provide guidance to and coordinate and appropriate individuals, including representatives from different committees, private sector, businesses, and non-profit and religious organizations to prepare for and respond to natural disaster, act of terrorism, or other man-made disaster that results in mass fatalities. Key word, or other man-made disaster. Man-made disaster. So even these natural disasters, you know that the so-called white man has something called the HART program. And these different acts of terrorism and a biological attack, it's the government that's going to bring it. They're at the head of all of this stuff. And it says, or other man-made disaster that results in mass fatalities. So they're preparing for mass death across the United States and even throughout the world. They're preparing for some type of global pandemic. And now in the wake of this, we got Ebola now, because the H1N1, maybe was it 3-4 years ago, they were trying to pass that and have mandatory vaccines for that, right? Let me go back to here to this article right here. But it didn't work. But now they have Ebola, and now they're conducting drills, zombie drills or zombie crisis scenario drills throughout the country, and using taxpayers' money to do this, and it's supposed to be done like as a fun thing to interact with the community, which is bullshit. They're planning on releasing some type of biological agent or some type of disease, and it's already here, the Ebola. You're gonna let somebody from a country where people are supposed to be infected according to news reports, you're gonna let them just come over here and waltz right into the United States without being screened, go through the airport without being screened? This is total bullshit. Now, check this out. Now let's go to Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. What does this say here? This is FEMA site from CDC Preparedness 101 Zombie Apocalypse. Editor's note: we wanted to share a blog post from our friends at the Centers for Disease Control preparing for a zombie attack or other fictional disasters can provide useful tips to get prepared for a real disaster. The following is an excerpt from the original blog post, the CDC Public Health Matters blog, May 16, 2011, by Ali S. Khan. Now, when you click on this link, guess what? You get an error. The resource you are looking for might have been removed, had its name changed, or is temporarily unavailable. I wonder why. So let's go back. And that's when you click on the link there. That's provided on FEMA's site. There are all kinds of emergencies out there that we can prepare for. Take a zombie apocalypse, for example. That's right, I said zombie apocalypse. You may laugh now, but when it happens, you'll be happy you read this. And hey, maybe you'll even learn a thing or two about how to prepare for a real emergency. The rise of zombies in pop culture has given credence to the idea that a zombie apocalypse could happen. In such a scenario, zombies would take over entire countries, roaming city streets, eating anything living that got in their way. The proliferation of this idea has led many people to wonder, how do I prepare for a zombie apocalypse? Well, we're here to answer the question for you and hopefully share a few tips. And this is on the CDC site. Why would they be doing something like this if they're not planning on something like this coming down the pike? Why would they be concerned with this? Now, here's another article. This is from RT. Right? This is from RT. And this article is from June 25th, 2012. Drills of the Dead, Maine prepares for a zombie attack. Now, before House Resolution 6566 was passed, which was in September of 2012. You go back about 60 days before that, which would be in June of 2012, there were drills of the dead in Maine. It says Maine prepares for a zombie attack. Now this was going on in Maine, which is the uttermost north of the East Coast. From Maine you can go right into Canada. So let me just read a little. Emergency officials in Maine have taken part in a training exercise in preparation for a zombie apocalypse. This comes just weeks after the federal government publicly denied the existence of zombies. Around 100 emergency responders from 8 different countries participated in the event in the quiet city of Bangor. The premise: an unknown virus originating from Jamaica has reached Maine, turning the infected into zombies. Once infected, the virus quickly spreads to the brain and turns the host into full-fledged zombie who has only one thing on his mind: biting other people. A la, what should come to mind? The movie World War Z. In the movie World War Z, it was what? It was the outbreak of some type of a rabies virus that turned people into rage-filled zombies, and they wanted to bite every goddamn thing that they seen. Right? Now, this is a scenario, a drill that was being run in Maine back in June of 2012, and it's telling you, and basically this is supposed to be a mock drill of what if a zombie attack happened, if a virus turned people into zombies, how would you prepare for it? I'm going to read a little bit more. The officials were armed with 2 would-be vaccines, one to prevent the infection from reaching the brain, and one to bring the zombie back to life. Remember, this is a mock drill that they were running in Maine. Now, this should like prompt any of you out there in the mind, in the event of this Ebola thing going on with all these different reports. This is old, but in correlation with what's happening right now, this should spark your mind to go out there and do more research on this, because GMS is basically, like Elder Gabar said, has been the avant-garde and warning you about these things that's coming. And this so-called white man, he's a mad scientist, believe you me. He's the harbinger of death. When you go back in the scriptures, the weapon, the blessing that was given to Esau was the sword. See, Jacob, we got the blessing to be Lord over the whole entire earth. But the blessing that was given to Esau by Isaac was the sword. And the sword comes in many different forms. Everything that this man has gotten was through his military. And also, biological warfare is something that they have been waging basically on the 12 tribes of Israel, basically since the inception of this country, America. They stole this land from the Native American Indians, who are Israelites, Gadites, and what they used on them was smallpox. And all up and down the eastern coast, eastern shoreline, smallpox had ravaged Native American populations and brought their numbers down drastically. Biological warfare. You also had the Tuskegee experiments with them experimenting with syphilis on black men, injecting them with syphilis and watching them deteriorate over a 20-year period. How the disease would affect them over a 20-year period. And damn well they could have just gotten a penicillin injection, and that would have killed the syphilis right there. A penicillin injection would have eradicated the syphilis, but they let them suffer and drop dead. There's been movies made about it, like a HBO movie starring Lawrence Fishburne. I believe he was in that one. I think it was called Miss Evers Boys. And I believe Lawrence Fishburne was up in there. He played one of the guys who was injected with the syphilis, and then he left and went to the military, and the military gave him a shot of penicillin, and he was fine. So when he came back to the town, and the guys that he was a part of that experiment with were still suffering from it, he brought them to the hospital to get a penicillin injection, and the hospital had a list with the names of all those jakes that were participating in that Tuskegee experiment, or basically that were victims of it, to not give them a penicillin shot. So you can go watch that Miss Evers Boy. So the so-called white man has had a history of using biological warfare against native peoples and you Negroes that were brought here from Portugal and Spain and from the west coast of Africa